We are continuing our conversation from last week, apparently, for the next 3 seconds.
No, we're not.
Yeah.
What's
Last week.
introduce
No.
Introduce everybody.
All right.
Introduce everybody.
I'm your host, Gabe. This is my co-host.
Liam.
I was supposed to have an alias this time, wasn't I? Shoot.
That's I was supposed to have an alias this time, wasn't I? Shoot.
I'm Harry.
And hi, I was supposed to have an alias this time. Shoot, I'm Layla.
What's our topic, Gabe?
Oh fuck! What
Today,
was our topic?
which is a different day, because we.
What was our topic? Oh, literature. We're gonna talk about literature, books, comic books.
I meant
Okay.
to ask. Okay, good. 'Cause I meant to ask like exactly what you meant when you said literature, because I didn't.
I don't know.
like,
I was just coming up
classic
with.
literature. Like, are we here to
I was
discuss
just
like,
we
purely
can,
like?
here's the thing. We could
classical
talk about
or
classic
what?
literature. Do you know who hasn't read classic literature?
You know who doesn't read? This guy.
Do you
He's
listen
pointing
to
at himself.
books on audio?
No, I can't. I can't do it.
Why
Like,
not?
I just stop paying attention.
Interesting.
Because I'll start doing something else. Because I'll multitask.
Sure.
It depends
I
on
can't
the
just
book
sit
for
and
me.
Listen to something.
I think a book
Um,
series that I delved into, like on audio, like was called Myth Adventures, the Myth Adventure series by Robert Asprin. It was written in the 70s, and it was inspired by oh god, I can't remember who did it. I think it was like Gene Kelly and this other guy. They did a bunch of movies called the Road 2 movies.
Sure, yeah.
And so it was inspired by that, but it was based on a kid and his demon friend who were interdimensional travelers.
Sounds like
And that's
wacky
the-
shit, and I want to read them. That sounds
Yeah,
awesome.
It's awesome. And they always, each chapter always starts with a fake quote. Like I think one of them is just like, you know what? This ship's probably gonna last forever. Darth Vader. Like that's like those are the quotes, and they're like really funny. It's a really fun like series, and most books are really short. Like I think the first one on Audible is only like 8 hours, which is pretty short for an Audible book.
Totally. So would you consider that literature?
Yes, I can. I think.
Why don't we
any-
have a discussion on reading?
Let's
No,
have a
but I-
discussion
I-
on reading.
I'm
Topic.
interested by, like, what is literature?
Yeah,
What is
that's
literature?
what I was actually gonna kind of go into. Is like,
don't know what-
do we each have a separate definition of literature?
I
and
think
what are?
anything can technically encompass literature. For me, what is literature is like written art. So like news isn't literature, but a book is.
Sure.
Or like, and even I'd go as far to say is like a
So why isn't
biography could be
news?
literature because like it's creative. What is news? I think it's just like
No,
written
why isn't news literature?
information.
Because, like,
I
mean, but journalists do a lot of work
Well,
on
so-
how they write and writing.
That's fair.
You
Could
know.
be
There are, like, Pulitzer
everything is
Prizes.
encompassed by media, which is a form of communication, and then a subdivision of that is writing, and a subdivision of that is literature.
Sure.
And
okay.
literature is the more artistic form of writing.
So
I think it could be satiated with that definition.
I'm.
Jack can't.
No, we could definitely debate this for as long as we
Yeah.
want.
So like, so prose and poetry is. Are there more literary poets than there are literary prose authors? Because you, by necessity, have to be artistic. Like, all poetry I would regard as artistic, and most prose I would. But like, does that mean that all poetry is literature?
All written poetry is literature.
Okay, well, sure, fine. You caught me.
That's fair.
There is spoken, improvised, and non-written poetry. in the world.
Because spoken and like impromptu like
Yeah.
spoken word poetry, that's more of a performance art,
Sure.
in my opinion.
That's right. Yeah.
Okay, because
Oh, we're
there's
getting way into semantic land. Let's go back to books we liked.
That's good. Yeah, fair
I
enough.
agree.
We'll
let that topic burn.
burn it in hell. Anyway, books we like.
Have you guys read any Vonnegut?
No.
Yes.
I still don't read.
This hasn't
So I read
changed
the
in the past
first
2
Vonnegut
minutes.
I've ever read,
Which
Player Piano, just a little while ago, and I thoroughly enjoyed it.
So what is
Player Piano is essentially a...
No, is Vonnegut an author or
Oh,
a series?
yeah,
Oh,
Kurt,
yes.
Kurt Vonnegut is a sci-fi author from the 50s and 60s.
Okay.
He wrote
40s and
He
50s?
wrote from like I think the 50s to the 70s.
Okay.
80s.
But this
is just
was
off the top of my head.
this was like 53. He wrote player piano, and it's essentially a drama about the psychological toll that an industrial revolution has, particularly the industrial revolution of automated and robotic industry, right? Which we're going through right now to one degree or another, and a lot of it's really interestingly predictive, right? Over
My family
60
just got a
years
Roomba.
ago.
I can't wait for it to try to kill us. Anyway, continue.
Yeah, no, like, but the problem is not that the machines want to kill people, is that the people want to kill themselves without having a duty in their community, right? The housewives, because this is the 50s and he presumes that all women are going to stay in the home forever, they do their 30 minutes of chores where they wash all the dishes and clothes, and then they're done with their chores for the day, and they're listless and purposeless and don't have perceived value.
Interesting.
And the men that are supposed to go out and work in factories have no factories to go out and work in, so they are listless and meaningless, and they yeah.
1952 to 1969 or 1997.
1997.
Was his last
Really?
book.
What did he publish in 97?
Timequake.
Cool. I might have to pick that up one of these years.
I feel like I've heard of Timequake.
Yeah, it's kind of autobiographical, in a weird sci-fi writer kind of way. In
Of
a
course.
similar way to as
I got all my ideas by
Asimov
traveling to
wrote
the future.
the prequel books for Foundation as kind of an autobiography. Yeah. Weird stuff.
So I don't really like reading books. There's very few books that I've like really gotten invested in.
Sure.
And they're usually because of like reading groups and classes. That's the reason, because I wanted to talk about it and it was fun with that group, or so on and so forth. What I really like reading is scripts. And I think it's for the same concept people like reading books, because people are like, I like reading books because I can imagine what the characters look like. There's actually a lot of where their imagination kind of kicks in. So I really like reading scripts because I can imagine the people I would cast in it. I can imagine the choreography. I can imagine the blocking, the set, like all that stuff, and all the different ways you go with it. And so that's why I like reading things, is when I have a lot of creative freedom to them,
I think that makes
essentially.
sense.
That's cool.
Well, I remember a book I read. It's called Red Shirts. I was expecting it to be like, it's the premise of the book is very silly, and so you expect it to be just a straight comedy. Essentially, it's about the characters in like Star Trek and like other sci-fi series that just like are introduced in an episode and die.
Yeah, totally.
Like that's the point of Red Shirts. But like as the story delves, like you get further and further, and it gets wackier and wackier. Like it's hilarious, and then it ends on this like cool note. But then the author included like afternotes for like 3 of the characters, right, in the story. And like I have never so legitimately cried in a story, because like they were such beautiful afternotes, because it's like, oh, here's what happened to this person, here's what happened to this person, here's what happened to this and it just gets deeper and deeper and more meaningful, and it like made me think about myself, made me think about my life. And it was a sci-fi book, so there's no reason I should have any correlation
No,
with any
that's
of
the
this.
point of
That's-
sci-fi,
yeah. Well,
right?
yeah.
To
That is really exactly the point of sci-fi. It is to tell stories of humans in different situations that are still very relatable.
and to
Fair
get you
enough.
invested in a potential future, right?
Yeah.
To get you invested in how the tides of time are still very much attached to your present moment.
So, oh god, Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep? Great title for a book. Fucking love. I love that book, and we did it. We read it for my science fiction and fantasy class for my senior year, and so it was a like whole class group discussion, right? And some guy read ahead and like spoiled one of the major like
come
deaths in it, like in the middle of the conversation, and everyone else had just read up to the chapter, so like I didn't get why they had to like kill this person, and everyone just looked at him and went, what? Why would that? What?
So last week we were talking about about text etiquette. That right there, like, that's why we have spoiler warnings, people.
I
Like, know what
had
everyone else has read
That's
up to.
why
Don't be that asshole.
I've always been annoyed with people who are like, I've already read the whole book, because that they fuck up conversations about the book
Totally.
because they don't know where everything happened.
it's not
I
like
think you
TV
can do
where
that
you can like
politely, though.
pinpoint
Yeah,
things
like,
by
like
every.
I have been the person who has read way far ahead in the book, but I always make sure that I know exactly where it stopped, and then I don't talk about anything
Yeah.
from there.
Yeah.
I just keep that in my my mental map. I don't go there. It's fine. If you look over at some point,
That's fine,
in the
but I
class, might
feel-
be cracking up because I know like about something ironic that's gonna happen farther down the line, but I'm not gonna say anything.
Yeah.
At least for me, whenever I read a book ahead or anything like that, I tend to not remember when things happen. I just remember that they happen. I remember the order. I don't remember the chapter, if that makes sense. And a lot of other people I feel are more constructed to remember the chapter and specific numbers associated
See,
with the thing.
I think I'm very similar to you. I just make a very concerted effort to when it's a specific point where we're supposed to stop, I memorize exactly where that point is, so that it's in my mind for the conversation.
Like that part of the story, we're gonna stop there.
Because if I didn't do that, I would absolutely.
I just
totally-
usually go off what other people are saying. Is I'll add on to what other people are saying. I'll never add on something new.
Yeah.
So one of my favorite book discussions groups I had was we read we got to choose 3 of the books, and they were the books the whole class had to read for my science fiction and fantasy class. And the easiest level book to read was Divergent, which is a middle school teen novel. Which I had the most fun reading because all it was us making fun of how it's a middle school teen novel, and there's just so many points in the book where it's my cheeks felt really red and hot, and that's as far as it goes, and it was just oh my god. And so that was one of the funnest books I've read because of the conversations we had about it.
Okay, on the flip side of that, Altered Carbon has the most beautifully overwritten and gratuitous sex scenes
They are so
ever.
gratuitous.
They are
It is
delightfully
Is that what?
gratuitous.
Yeah,
Is that what the Netflix series
Yeah,
is based
it's what
off
the
of?
Netflix
Oh, okay.
based-
It's very different. Having seen both, I very much appreciate both of them, but
I
do
only
prefer
watched the first
book.
episode of the show.
The show's great. The book is great. I can't wait for the sequels of both, because
Well-
the sequels of the book are out. I just haven't read them. But the sequel of the TV show will hopefully be coming out, and we'll get Shattered Angels and
So is it the
Broken
same?
Angels? Broken
Is it the
Angels.
same present premise where humans are
Yes.
just
Yes.
minds at this point?
Well, they have the cortical stack technology, which it pretty much is a synthetic immortality, functional immortality.
Yeah, you can upload your brain
So
into
you're
a new
shot in
body.
the stack and everything. goes
Yeah.
down.
And there's a whole religious aspect of you should not get a stack because then you're losing your soul. Because
Only if you're Catholic,
yeah.
and very few people are Catholic.
So.
But
that's an
it
interesting
is
aspect
a
to
very
the show
interesting
for me.
conversation that they have in both the book and the movie
Totally.
about.
And the exploits you can do to be,
Exactly.
So I only saw the first episode of the show, but I think I found it. What I found interesting was the concept of the mind, just imprisoning someone's mind
Yeah.
into unconsciousness.
Yeah.
That was simultaneously fascinating and horrifying to me at the same time, because it's like dying without dying.
Yeah, it's
It's just
it's
to be
very interesting because actually in that setting the form of punishment, prison, is you're not conscious for it. They literally just put you on ice, just completely blacked out, and then they just wake you up later.
100
100
years
later, and
200
everyone
years.
is gone or left, and they've moved on.
or
with
in
their
a
life.
different body.
Oh,
body,
definitely in a different
almost
body.
definitely,
God,
unless
that,
they're mega rich.
Mega rich, yeah.
But then you just don't go to prison.
Yeah.
When was the last time you heard of a meth going to
Bye.
prison?
all right. So we are almost done with this topic. All right. So
Books.
books and Altered Carbon on Netflix now.
Okay, one last book pitch, just because we don't have enough time and I love it, and I just finished it. Reincarnation Blues.
Okay.
Oh, and Layla's book.
Yeah, no, it's fine if we don't have.
We've
enough
got
time.
another
No.
30
we-
seconds.
Go.
we
30
can-
seconds.
Okay,
Pitch.
well, Gabe's what Gabe was talking about reminded me of a book called A Visit from the Goon Squad by Jennifer Egan. For me, this is weird to be saying too because this is like a pretty strictly like literary fiction sort of book, and I'm usually the genre fiction fanatic. But it's fantastic. It's one of those books that's like from several different perspectives, going over a very long period of time, and like the characters reappearing throughout the different stories, but in different ways. It's beautifully written, beautifully constructed, excellent prose. Highly recommend it.
Cool. We're out of
All
time.
right. Everyone, on to the next topic.